Hi, today we're going to be talking about feminist therapy and then applying it to a potential client, Nia. Before we dive into that vignette, I would like to take some time to outline what feminist therapy is and how it applies and aligns with my therapeutic disposition and goals. So, what is feminist therapy? Feminist therapy is a collaborative, empowerment-oriented approach to therapy that values the knowledge and curiosity surrounding the client's intersectionality and identity. Specifically, it looks at how gender, race, culture, socioeconomic status, and other power imbalances or dynamics in general, how they all shape distress and how they might exacerbate mental health disorders and interpersonal conflicts. We're looking at valuing the shared power in the therapeutic space between the therapist and the client. So transparency and honesty is expected in order for the therapist to honor and respect the client's lived experience. So as a therapist in this framework, you would want to see the problems of the client, the problems and the presenting issues that the client is bringing to the therapeutic space in a contextual light. So how are the systems around them building and perpetuating these issues rather than looking at the problems from coming within the individual sitting across from you. So the key concepts of this framework are understanding the gender roles and socialization of the client. How are they brought up to be, and how are they brought up to uphold a certain schema or disposition in their social settings? So along with that, what internalized messages are they still holding on to? What are some of those messages perpetuating in their list of maybe issues that they're navigating, and what are some positive messages that they're holding on to? So with that, we're analyzing the power dynamics within their relationships and within the therapeutic space, and even the power dynamics that they hold within themselves. Are they able to set boundaries? Are they able to say no? Are they able to do what they want? Do they limit themselves in a negative way? Likewise, what oppressive systems are they navigating? Let's look at their intersectionality. Let's look at their social settings. Let's look at their culture. So with that, we have to be culturally aware and heavily relational. We want to uphold a safety in our therapeutic setting while also encouraging honesty and reciprocity. And at the core of everything is empowerment and boundary development. We want clients to walk out of our sessions feeling like they can do the work themselves to uphold the goals that they have for themselves and to do the work to fix the relational imbalances that they might be facing outside of the therapy sessions. And this fits me because I'm naturally curious and I'm very passionate about intersectionality and systemic imbalances, and also just the accessibility of mental health psychoeducation. I think it's really important for culturally competent therapists to be working with people that can trust and align with their views and feel completely safe opening up in a therapeutic setting. So that part is all natural. The part that's more challenging for me is that I don't want to project my own experiences onto my client. So balancing that empowerment without overwhelming the client with my enthusiasm, and also navigating very sensitive cultural topics. Although I'm a person of color, I acknowledge that I do not hold the same experiences as someone that might identify the same way as I do. So just remaining curious and humble throughout this process is what I hope to do. So let's understand our client a little bit more. Nia, 50-year-old woman, black woman, who is also a nurse and the primary caregiver of her elderly mom, and also a mother of 4 adult children who still rely on her to various capacities, whether it be financially or emotionally. So she's struggling intersecting identities. She's a black woman, she's also the eldest daughter, and she's a caregiver and a nurse. So she upholds this role of the strong woman, and specifically the strong black woman. And in this cultural setting, this character is not meant to complain. Rather, they internalize their stresses to uphold this facade that they don't need help and that they're selfless. And in many times they are, but to what extent? As we see here, Nia is facing burnout and emotional exhaustion, which is manifesting in this guilt and shame surrounding her performance and her ability to take care of everything that she needs to do. So we're seeing caregiver role overload. She's being expected to hold everything together for her family. The fear is lingering about her feeling selfish for taking time for herself. We're seeing systemically that her family is not upholding the same amount of responsibilities as she is. There's no emotional reciprocity there in her relationships, and she feels invisible. So the feminist concepts that come up when I'm looking at Nia's vignette is that she's holding too many responsibilities, and this comes from women, specifically women in the Black community, being held to this high standard that they need to be the strongest matriarch without getting any credit or support from those who she's supporting. The power imbalance, exactly, that is exactly what's being displayed right here. Everyone depends on her, but she can't depend on others. And this is internalized oppression. There's guilt for resting, there's guilt for wanting boundaries, there's guilt for wanting to do things that only build Nia up. So self-care is thrown out the window. Silly frolicking, which is very good for our creative minds and our hearts. Time to heal any traumas that she might have experiences or any secondary symptoms that we might be seeing here. Excuse me. Though that opportunity is also thrown out the window when she's in survival mode most of the time. She's silencing her emotions, and she's never had the space to fully express her needs or explore what her needs might be. So this theory and this framework will help us shift the blame off of Nia and onto the systems that are shaping her roles. And it normalizes fatigue and resentment. Not to normalize it so that it's her everyday life forever, but to normalize it in the sense that this is happening because of the systems around her. But the way that we navigate these systems and navigate the structural integrity of our interpersonal relationships can help us to resolve this kind of structural prison that we put ourselves in emotionally when we're upholding unjust and unfair societal expectations. This makes space for her identity, and she has an identity beyond caregiving. Feminist therapy will help her explore that. So moving on to goals. The therapeutic goals are to reduce guilt around rest and increase empowerment around saying no. Explore and challenge the strong woman narrative in her life. What would it be like to rely on others and to be a softer version of yourself, and to rebuild parts of your identity outside of caretaking? Let's increase the emotional visibility and self-compassion. And hopefully my approach will be collaborative and validating and culturally grounded. I want to be able to name the systemic pressures directly and clarify with her if I'm missing anything. And I want her to practice reclaiming her voice and voicing her needs. So 2 examples of interventions that I would do would be the power analysis. Let's map out the expectations on a daily basis. Who's relying on you and who are you showing up for? And kind of just looking deeper at those power dynamics. It also will give me insight on her support system a little better. And then boundary setting practice. Let's do empty chair. Let's talk to the people around you and practice saying no and navigate what it would feel like to face rejection in that or acceptance in that. That could be very empowering. And I think the challenges in this would be sensitivity. Of course, because I'm the clinician in this setting, I'm very empowered by this work, but for someone who might not have the experience talking about how our systems reinforce these stressors, it might feel harsh and it might even feel out of left field. But hopefully, with some gentle and targeted line of questioning, we can uncover the systems without directly having to name them up front so harshly on our first meeting. So I don't want to rush the process or project my own meanings onto her life or her experience or her identity. And we're working with deep guilt and shame tied to identity and roles and values. That's not something that can just be quickly uncovered. So I still have questions around how to directly approach this internalized messaging and approach this shame that we're experiencing, and how to pace and plant levels of empowerment or interventions of empowerment. So kind of just balancing the fun part of feminist theory, or the lighthearted part, with the real or the very emotionally heavy, potentially triggering parts of looking at one's identity and looking at things that might not be in our control. But I do want to learn more about relational and cultural work, specifically within the African American community, and the African American community in California, and explore intergenerational expectations and what it would look like to kind of redefine what it means to be a strong woman, specifically within our culture. So thank you for listening.